Yeah, Becky, two Federal Reserve presidents who were the subject of a conflict of interest controversy surrounding their trading practices, announcing plans to retire yesterday, just as Fed Chair Jay Powell begins testimony before Congress. Dallas Fed President Robert Kaplan said he will step down October 8th. His financial disclosure showed multiple multi-million-dollar trades in individual stocks throughout the year that watchdog groups said created the appearance of a conflict of interest. Kaplan, he headed the bank for the past 6 years, insisted he did not violate the Fed's code of conduct. The former Goldman Sachs executive saying he was stepping down because, quote, the recent focus on my financial disclosure risks becoming a distraction. Boston Fed President Eric Rosengren said he would retire September 30th. Rosengren headed the bank for the past 14 years. He said he would step down for health reasons. He announced he's a candidate for a kidney transplant. He had planned to retire in June of 2022. Disclosure forms showed Rosengren made 37 trades in real estate investment trusts that in part owned mortgage-backed securities. The Fed is purchasing billions in MBS as part of its monetary policy. Powell may well face questions about these conflicts today, including his own ownership of individual municipal bonds. He owned those bonds before the Fed last year began buying munis. Becky?
You know, Steve, a couple of questions. Well, I want to talk more about Powell's testimony, but first, whether changes are coming to personnel at the Fed, because these are pretty big ones, two very hawkish Fed heads leaving.
Yeah, and I think it's worth pointing out both of them appear to be taking stances on monetary policy that would appear to be adverse to their portfolios.
Right.
But the change is coming. Rosengren, Kaplan to retire. Randy Quarles, his term as vice chair of bank supervision ends next month. Richard Clarida, his term ends in January as a governor. And Fed Chair Powell, his term as chair ends in February. So there are some substantial changes that could be coming depending upon decisions made by the Biden administration.
You know, I don't want to write this off as housekeeping because it's important, but maybe not as important as the testimony that Powell's going to be giving today, just in terms of talking about inflation not being as transitory. That's a message that the market seems to be hearing because the 10-year keeps climbing. It hit 1.5% yesterday, and it's skyrocketing right through that. You know, points we're talking about.
No doubt in that testimony, Becky, that Powell is more hawkish about inflation. He talks about the possibility that the supply bottlenecks and constraints out there in the economy will be around longer. Right. And he does say that if inflation is a serious concern, the Fed will act. The kind of language that says, hey, it's out there on our radar. Remember, Powell has said that there will not be inflation one way or another. Okay, so right. One way is that it does end up being transitory, goes away end of next year or beginning of next year, somewhere in the middle of next year. The other way is the Fed has to act to clamp down on the economy and economic growth.